Welcome to Code Engineering. This is the episode 2 on building a production-ready Java application. Okay, so basically, we're in this episode is a continuation of the first episode, where in the first episode we built 3 packages, which is communicating with gRPC protocols, where protobuf is the model. So basically what we had from the previous episode is we have these 3 packages: hello service as the gRPC server, hello client consume the hello service, and hello proto model hosted the interface definition language that's being shared with the client and service. For details on the first episode, you can go to the YouTube here, and you can, or otherwise you can also download the code from the first episode, but you have to pay. So I suggest you, rather than paying or becoming a member that pays also per month, you better just go to the YouTube and then learn it, write it yourself, which is also better for your learning. That's the reasons I make it a little bit harder for you to download the code. Now continue on what's the topic of this episode. The topic of this episode is actually about upgrading our hello service, which is the gRPC server package, into having Spring Boot inside of it. The reason why we want to add Spring Boot here, because as we grow to production, there are several essential stuff that we will need it. The first of all is dependency injections. Dependency injection framework, Spring has it. Another one, later on we also need metrics. Spring Boot have a way to emit metrics. Logging also part of it. And Spring Boot also have a Spring Cloud project which help us later on connecting to various kind of cloud. And one of it is AWS, which is in my current plan we are going to deploy to AWS in the future. When it is, I don't know. Depends on how frequent I'm going to create the video. That's why your support to this channel by subscribing, liking the video, put comment on it will motivate me. If you really think it's useful, go ahead. Now let's get to the point. So we already convey also just now about what we are going to do and why, right? Now adding the Spring Boot. So looking first of all is the pom.xml of our Maven. This is where we're going to change our dependencies. Currently it depends directly with this io.grpc. Now we are not going to do that here. What we are going to do is actually we're going to replace our direct dependency to grpc library with this one. This is a grpc-spring-boot-starter, where actually making us able to write our grpc server like we're writing a controller for a Spring Boot application. Okay, so now I've been prepared for these things. So basically what we are going to add later on, first of all, another addition what we are going to learn in this episode is the usage of dependency management in Maven. Dependency management here is a bill of material so that we know what sets of versions that our dependency going to use. So if we don't define any dependency down here, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to see to the dependency management. In this case, for example, this Spring Boot starter actuator, it will look into the build material from the Spring Boot starter parent and then get the right version that will be compatible with each other. So Spring Boot has a lot of module dependency, and usually we don't use everything of it. We only use part of it. But in order for it to work together, you need to choose the right version. And this dependency management help to simplify it so that you don't have to define the version yourself here. Okay, so let's start by adding this dependency management. Okay, I don't think we need the cloud dependency for this episode. We just need the Spring Boot starter parent. Let's see later on whether we need it or not. Okay, and then just now, as I said before, we need the grpc boot starter. This is where we're going to replace our direct grpc dependency. Another thing is we going to need we might not use this one yet, but actuator from Spring Boot is actually later on we're going to need it to emit some metrics. Maybe let's not put it in here first because we don't use it in this video. So that says we already have the dependency management in place. We have replaced our grpc dependencies. Then we sync. Just now what I do is I'm syncing the pom.xml. Once it's done, we'll continue on here. What we're going to do here is we're going to rewrite our Java application so that it looks more like what you call that, what the Spring Boot application is. So rather than instantiating the server instance here ourselves, what we're going to do is we're going to convert this into a Spring Boot application. So we're going to add here Spring Boot application annotation, and then in the main function what we need to do is just spring application.run, and we pass in the class name, the class where it is, and args. And here it is, we no longer need this. Now how do we going to define our port, right? What we need to do is we need to define application.yaml. In this application.yaml, we can define our server port. So this is what we're going to do. Server port 58080. For the sake of continuation of previous one, we have it in the 8080, so we need to put this 8080 instead of 5050. Spring application and so forth. We don't use Eureka in this episode, so that will be enough. Now we can delete all these server things. Okay, and now the next question is, in the previous one we actually have the server where we register the hello service implementation here. Then how do we make the current Spring Boot application know where is our hello service? What's been done is we need to annotate this into grpc service, and automatically using the dependency injection it will recognize this hello service implementation and register it into itself. Okay, so I suppose we no longer need this throw exception stuff. Yep, I think we're done. Actually, we already convert now our direct grpc dependency server into the Spring Boot grpc. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this one. My computer is lagging. Okay, I'm going to rename this into Hello Service Application. This is like if you ever write a Spring Boot, usually they always name the one that is hosting the main function like this. Hello Service Application, and this one is the Hello Service implementation. Now we already have it all. We can start testing it out by running this. And then we're going to have later on run our hello client to see the output. While we're waiting on it, let me summarize what we've done. We're basically converting the hello service from direct dependency to gRPC into Spring Boot gRPC because in the future we're going to leverage the Spring Boot framework for a lot of production things like metrics, logging, and also the dependency injection. And we in fact already use dependency injection when we convert this gRPC direct implementation by having this annotation gRPC service, then making this class is known to have the implementations toward the hello service defined in the protobuf. Now the server is running. Let's run the client and see if everything still works. Available IO exception. Oh, because I'm not using gRPC netty. I think the default must be not netty. We can see when we run this application, gRPC server started, listening on address 55448. Oh, because, okay. One thing that I was wrong about was this one. Because this port 0 will make it a random one. So actually the 8080 should be under the gRPC section. Let's run this again. This time the gRPC should be running at the 8080. Yep. Now let's start the client. Wait, what? Yes, that's it. As we can see, we already successfully changed our hello service to have Spring Boot in it. And to summarize several technical things that we learned today, first of all, in terms of the Maven, we learned about this existence of dependency management where you can define a bill of material for a set of your Spring Boot so that later on you don't need to define your Spring Boot version and it will maintain the compatibility with your various dependencies. Second, we also learn about application.yaml. This is actually Spring Boot specific. So Spring Boot configuration can be configured like this. Under resource, you create a file named application.yaml. And then in this case, we're using it to set up our server port for the gRPC. Thirdly, about technical things that we learned today is how to write simple Spring Boot application and simple gRPC service. Really, what we did just now was just annotate our hello service implementation with this add gRPC service, while for the main function, we make it super simple now. Rather than having all the server instantiation and registrations of the service, we just do add spring boot application and call spring application.run. That's it for this episode. Now we are growing more into production ready by having the Spring Boot framework into our server. Thank you for watching.